Okay, so maybe you've been looking at the current lineup of Android devices and thought to yourself, I really wish there was a device that could just eclipse a bit more of my face when I talk on it. Well, you're in luck, because Samsung has that device. I'm David from theunlocker.com, and today we're going to do a quick review of the Samsung Infuse 4G for AT&T. Okay, so since this is an Android device, it runs pretty much the same as most other Android devices, minus a few changes here and there. So if you're unfamiliar with Android, please head to the link just beneath this video entitled Android Reviews, and that'll give you a quick understanding of how Android in general works. Then you can come back to this video. Simply because we're not going to touch on Android too much, we're just going to touch on what makes this Android device different from other Android devices. Per usual, let's start with the hardware of the device. We have a 1.2 gigahertz single core processor, 16 gigs of internal storage with a micro SD card slot. We have an 8 megapixel camera on the back with an LED flash, and a 1.3 megapixel camera on the front for video calling, etc. Despite having a nice camera though, there is the lack of a dedicated camera button, which I personally think all phones should have, as it is the most natural way to take a picture. This way you could just hold down the button slightly at the top to focus and push it all the way to take the picture, just like you would with a normal camera. Instead of having to tap the screen, wait for it to focus, and then tap this button. It's just a lot more natural to do it this way, and I frankly would rather do it that way, but not a deal breaker. It also comes with standard connectivity including Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPS, etc. But it's also one of the few 4G AT&T devices running on their newly functional HSPA Plus network. Now that's all fine and dandy, but what'll really hit you about this phone is the 4.5-inch Super AMOLED screen, which, for those keeping score, is 0.2 inches bigger than a 4.3-inch screen that quite a few other devices are sporting, including this HTC Sensation. In addition to the sheer size of the screen, that super acronym I mentioned earlier is actually the name of the type of technology that the screen is using. Super AMOLED, which stands for Active Matrix Organic Light Emitting Diode, whatever that is, basically means to you and I that the screen will look a lot crisper, brighter, and more colorful than most, and I like that. So besides the screen, there is one last thing about the hardware that'll stand out to you, and that's the size and weight of the thing. I actually took this out and proceeded to look through the box for the battery, automatically assuming it must not already be in the device, as it couldn't be that light all assembled. Turns out, of course, that it was. Compared to even a smaller device like the Sensation, for example, it is still lighter, despite the larger battery and the larger screen. Styling-wise, the device is pretty nice. When you have a screen this large, the phone tends to feel enormous, but Samsung has done a good job of keeping the phone as thin as they could, and this does help in making the device feel manageable. Besides the screen, the device has a simple, minimalistic quality to it. It feels flat and simple, and even has just one thing happening on each side. Volume rocker here, micro USB port here, 3.5mm headphone jack here, and the power button here. By the way, I have to say I like Samsung's moving of the power button here. Kind of makes sense, really. When you hold a phone, you're more easily able to push something on the side than on the top. First up, you'll notice a bunch of cosmetic changes. The way the dock at the bottom is set up, the way certain stock apps look, etc. Most of these changes, however, are just that, cosmetic. They don't really serve too much purpose. Well, except for two of them. The app drawer moves left and right, but it can also be turned into a list and can be edited and reorganized, which stock Android doesn't allow you to do. Also, they've added some settings to the camera app, including a panoramic shot mode, which is kind of fun. As you'd expect when you have a 1.2 gigahertz processor in your phone, performance is pretty good. So you can swipe, it's very responsive. Opening apps, pretty decent as well, and generally you don't have any lag. Besides all of this, AT&T has added some of their standard upsell apps, things like navigation, a family locator, etc. The majority of which have a monthly cost associated with them and can be supplemented by free third-party apps from the market. As for that AT&T 4G I mentioned earlier, we like to do a little speed test here in the office. Now the signal here isn't the greatest for any carrier, but it does give you a kind of a little benchmark to compare to other phones, either from the same carrier or some of the other ones we've tested in the past. So using speedtest.net's app, let's begin the test. So there you go. That's pretty decent. That's about 4G speeds for AT&T that we've been getting for most of their devices. So I'd say it's on par. In conclusion, this device performs just as well as any other Android device on the market, has the same apps available for download, and costs about the same. So the real differentiators about this device will always be the screen, the thinness, and the weight. No other device has this large of a screen with this bright of an image, be this thin, and weigh this little. So if you prefer a larger screen on your Android device, wouldn't mind having faster internet, and are on AT&T, then the Samsung Infuse 4G is a great choice.